in an elevator underground, taken past a bunch of security checkpoints into a skiff, secret compartmentalized information facility, and the placard on the wall of the skiff was off-world technologies, shown two things: an orb levitating above a podium and a gauntlet, like almost like a glove-like thing, emitting hieroglyphics.
It wasn't really state-of-the-art, right? But when he got to the bottom of that long elevator ride, it was. That is entirely consistent with an advanced weapons development structure, right? First of all, underground is absolutely the most secure facility you can imagine, right?
Edwards to Nellis to Peterson in Colorado and Cheyenne Mountain Complex, NORAD, like this stuff is, there's enough smoke there.
Gauntlet, the Space Ghost glove that he described in the sphere, totally consistent with Bob Lazar's story from 1988.
You were a Green Beret, am I wrong?
That's correct.
Okay. So a recent Green Beret just came on my show. His name is Randy Anderson. I believe you know him now.
Yeah.
And Randy has a pretty amazing story. He says that he was stationed as a 18 Bravo weapons sergeant at Naval Surface Warfare Crane in Indiana, that he was taken in an elevator underground, taken past a bunch of security checkpoints into a skiff, secret compartmentalized information facility, and the placard on the wall of the skiff was off-world technologies, and he was shown two things: an orb levitating above a podium and a gauntlet, like almost like a glove-like thing, emitting hieroglyphics. And I have his DD-214. I have a couple of his colleagues' DD-214s. I know for a fact that he still occasionally does contract work for Area 51. I think people don't realize how big of a test site that is, and that they're not going to like fire this guy for, he didn't break any NDAs as a result of this. He just, it was just the NDA, as the Naval Surface Warfare Crane NDA. It's nothing to do with Area 51. They wouldn't retaliate. If they did retaliate, it would be self-identification for Area 51. So you have all these people kind of coming at the story saying it's bullshit. I lend it a lot of credence given what I've gotten to know about him over the last, couple of months. I've known him for maybe 4 or 5 months now, but I've done, extra research on it. What do you think about his story?
So before he came on your show, long before he came on your show, I had quite a bit of interaction with him. Dave Grush, through maybe one other person, maybe it was Michael Herrera, put me in touch with him. And again, with the same notion that Ross and Dave wanted me to do with Jake.
Suss him out.
Be a compassionate, open ear, and again, tell them my story. And part of the value of this is when these guys come out, at least they're not as crazy as the colonel who thinks he was freaking abducted by a praying mantis.
Sure.
Right. And so it kind of encourages them.
But what was your assessment of the core story? I mean, do you think that
I believe every aspect of his story. I don't have the same level of confidence because I didn't meet him with 4 other guys that I could see and watch the behavior.
Sure.
But I find zero inconsistency with what he said. Now, there's a couple of details, very important details that you left out in your summary.
Yeah.
And one was the long elevator ride.
Yep.
Right? And the notion that topside, the facility, he didn't really describe it as being decrepit, but it wasn't that. I think the way he described it is it wasn't really state-of-the-art, right? But when he got to the bottom of that long elevator ride, it was very sophisticated, right? And so that is entirely consistent with an advanced weapons development structure, right? First of all, underground is absolutely the most secure facility you can imagine, right? And why worry about fence lines and canines and security forces, folks, if you're 100 feet below grade?
And there are rumors of deep underground military bases from Edwards to Nellis to Peterson in Colorado and Cheyenne Mountain Complex, NORAD. Like this stuff is there's enough smoke there where you don't have to say anything without me saying I think there's some fire. But
I've been in several of them.
Yeah,
I've never been read in on anything in my entire career. But the smoke is very, very prominent and hot.
Yeah,
never saw any flames.
Yeah.
But the gauntlet, the Space Ghost glove that he described in the sphere, totally consistent with Bob Lazar's story from 1988.
Why is the glove? I didn't know. Is the glove part of Bob Lazar's story? Or?
No, the sphere was. But
I thought Bob Lazar worked on like a sports model, like alien reproduction vehicle sort of UFO thing. I didn't know that he saw like a sphere orb or something.
Oh, yeah. He describes a basketball size, maybe a smaller, maybe soccer ball sized-ish item. And as he approached it and tried to, it was sort of like he had magnetic gloves on of opposite polarity. And so he couldn't get there.
That story's come up a ton. Seeing a sphere being tested for your psionic abilities, your mind matter capabilities, or something via this sphere thing.
Well, I don't want to.
I just interviewed a psionic asset, who has that story, and so that just keeps coming up. This sort of sphere thing that often, I guess, in Randy's case, he says it came off the craft. It wasn't the craft itself; it came off the craft. And then I just had Michael Schrad on, who's this deep UFO researcher who goes through all of Leonard Stringfield's stuff. And he describes this egg, and the egg is cracked, and it's taken to Berkeley labs to be studied, and there on the inside is a sphere inside of the egg. So I have no idea. We're getting in super speculative territory. But okay, so Lazar, what else would corroborate? Because Lazar, I think reasonably to somebody in the audience is like, who knows? So is there anybody else that, go for it.
Well, other elements of smoke, this is more wispy than the thick, carcinogenic, heavy black smoke, but Crane's not far from Wright-Patterson.
No, it's a few hour drive, 3 hours.
And it's a Navy facility.
That's right.
Now, what I could tell you about Randy's specialty as an 18 Bravo weapons sergeant. These guys really are quite special. One of the final exams during the Special Forces Q course is called the Pile test. Did Randy tell you about any of that? I don't think he mentioned that. I saw your interview with him.
Yeah.
So
talked about stress fractures everywhere, just how intense. But what's the Pile test?
The Pile test is so a weapons sergeant in their 6 months of training, they're trained on all sorts of foreign weapons. And you have to learn how to assemble them, disassemble them, repair them. Because you're behind enemy lines, we call it battlefield recovery. You use whatever you pull off the battlefield and you repair them and give them back to the guerrillas that survived, or in a foreign internal defense, you're kind of trying to do counter-guerrilla. But one way or another, these weapons, you need to be an expert, like almost an armorer level. A lot of these guys end up, after they retire, they go run gun shops and they become armorers. So the Pile test is, out of all the weapons, and I don't know how many they learn over the course of their training, it's probably double digits, like 11, 12, 15 different weapons. And so these weapons are randomly selected, and they come in, and there's a table, and all the weapons are there, and then the instructor clicks the stopwatch, and they got to disassemble all the weapons. And then, okay, everybody's timed, and everybody that doesn't make it in a certain amount of time, you're a no-go, and then you got to do a retest, so you're out, and then you got to come back and do it again. And then same thing. Okay, now disassemble it. Put it all together. All right. Anybody that doesn't disassemble it, it's a lot easier than assembling usually. And every now and then there'll be, because there's little springs, tiny little springs, and you'll hear like a bing, and the spring goes flying across the room, and the guy's like, "Oh shit!" And so you got to go scramble to get the spring. So lots of hilarious stories about that. But the pile test is after those 2 pre-tests. Then they got to stand up and come away from the table, and then after the disassembly, the instructor comes over and mixes all the parts.